Were you raised by your father and mother?
Yes, I have a very solid family upbringing.
And so
Yes.
your father and mother, are they still together?
Yes. They've
So,
been married 67 years now.
and you have brothers and sisters as well?
Two sisters. I have an older sister and a younger sister. I'm the middle.
Okay. And so when you realized you felt this way about being a guy
Yeah.
and you went and told your mother, what did she say?
Well, so what happened was I became such a drug addict and alcoholic that my family disowned me for about 3 years,
At
which was
what
the best.
age? What age?
I think I was about 25, and I
Okay.
was acting out. I would call them at 3 in the morning, asking them for money for my phone bill, but it was really for crack because I was smoking crack and acting insane. Anyway, they just disconnected from me, which was perfect. After 3 years, I got sober, and in my sobriety, one of the things you do is called making amends, and you call all the people who you hurt or just. And I did. I called my mom one day, and I said, "Hey, mom," and she goes, "Who's this?" I'm like, "It's Buck." And she's like, "What? We thought we would never see you again." And I'm like, "Well, I got sober." She's like, "Wow." And then I said to my mom, "I have something to tell you." And she said, "Well, your voice sounds weird." And I said, "Okay, well, that's what I'm going to tell you." I started to take testosterone, and now I'm having what we used to call a sex change. And it was very silent for a minute. And my mom was like, "You know, if that's the thing that's going to keep you alive, we love you and we miss you. And that's all we ever wanted for you." And that was the sort of connection that I reconnected with my parents. And, 30 years later, I'm solid with my parents. I have an amazing
And
relationship, and I'm
so
back.
up until that point of being 25 and you calling,
Yeah.
they didn't
Yeah.
know that you were feeling this way from a childhood up to that point?
Well, yeah, when I was 16, they had to send me to a psychologist because I was very much not wanting to live, and I was doing bad things to myself, and I was disconnected, and they sent me to a psychiatric ward. My parents knew I was struggling, but they didn't know I was struggling with dysphoria.
Oh,
They thought I was struggling with my sexuality. So nobody back in that was in the 70s, and nobody could help me on any level. They didn't even know what was wrong with me.
right. And so when you told your father, what did he say?
Well, my mom was super cool about it, but my dad, he wasn't cool with it because, my dad even had a hard time with me being a gay woman. My dad's Canadian. Not that that means anything, but he's, very straight laced and very, he just doesn't understand any of that, nor did he want to. And that's okay. But eventually, so I made an appearance at my parents' house as much as I could so that they could see me, and I could, and he would continue to call me the girl name and she, and I'm like, "Dad, look at me. If we're at Costco and you call me she, people are going to think you're nuts." So eventually my dad just sort of settled into it, and he saw what a better person I am, and my sobriety and creating my businesses and being very successful in life. And
So let
I
me
think,
ask this though. So like
yeah,
when you before he found out at
yeah,
25 that you were doing this thing, right?
yeah,
He
yeah,
knew you were a lesbian before that?
yes,
Like when you
yes.
were in the home growing up, he knew you were a lesbian?
I think so. I
Oh,
think
but you
they had
never
a
discussed it
feeling.
with him.
Yeah, they had a I never s yes, I did. I said, I never I remember this time my parents were like, "What's wrong with you?" They were sat me down and they were so concerned with what was wrong with me. And I said, I'll never forget, I said to my parents, I said, "I feel like a man. I don't feel like a
Okay.
woman." And that was the first time I had ever really said that. And I equated it to gay. I did not equate it to being, transsexual, because I didn't even know that you could do what I did. So
So
that was the first time I sort of said that to them.
so
And
when your father at 25, when your
yeah,
father saw that you had done all this, what did
yeah.
he say?
He didn't really understand. My father said, "I will try to accept you, but I'm not sure if I can."
And what did your sister say?
Oh, they were all cool about it. They were like, "Oh, we always knew you were like this." It's like my sisters were super great. They did not have an issue with it. And my older sister was a police officer for 30 years, and my younger sister is a business owner. So they're very in the just regular world, if that makes sense. But no, my sisters were very accepting. It was my father who had the hardest time with it.
Right. And why do you think it's easier for women to accept wrongdoing than men?
I don't know. I think it's just maybe it's a mother. I don't think women in general. I think mothers have a different connection to their children than fathers do. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I just think it's a different connection. I'm also a dad. I have a son, 11-year-old son, and my
So you
partner.
had a baby?
No, my partner did. Yeah,
Oh,
my wife. Yes,
oh,
she
I
had a
see.
baby. Yeah,
And so when you were growing up, you were closer to your mother or your father?
my father.
You were closer to your father than your mother?
Yes, very
And
much so.
and how did you feel about your mother growing up?
Oh, I love my mom. She was always fine, but you have those things about your mom that, just normal kid things. But my dad was
Like
like,
what, for an example?
for an example, my mom would say, "Go take out the trash," and I'd be like, "Shut up!" And she'd be like, "You're gonna talk to me like that? Your dad is coming home right now." So it was just some stuff. It wasn't really. I didn't dislike my
But she
mom,
would get
never.
on your nerve at times?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And
totally.
and when you were asking your father to help you deal with her, did he help you deal with your mother?
I didn't really ask him that at all.
Why
My
not?
father, what I don't know. I just don't know. I think, I grew up in a household that was very much about supposed to be having respect for your parents. And so
Yeah.
by saying F you to my mom, that took my dad. He came home from work. He did. And I got nailed and I never did it again. I grew up in a
You
very
said F you
disciplined.
to your mother?
I did. I
And,
did.
and your
I,
father punished you for that?
yes.
Why didn't
I
he
never said
punish
it
your
again.
mother? Why didn't he punish your mother for making you say that?
I don't think that was the case. I think my dad made me take responsibility for it, not my mother.
Why not
So
your
my mother,
mother?
sorry?
Why not your mother? Because it was a sign that something had gone wrong with you and your mother. Why did your father correct her rather than you?
Well, because I believe that it was more about me, and that was the situation. I should
Oh.
have never said that, and I should have never disrespected my mother. And that's what my dad said to me. Don't you ever disrespect your mother like that ever again.
But
Because
if you're
next time
mad at her, how's that disrespect to say F you?
the words, are you kidding? If my son ever said F you to my partner or even me, all hell would break loose in this
So you would
house.
treat your son the way your father treated you when you
When it
said,
comes to certain disciplinary things, 100%.
but
Yep.
he, if you do, he gonna be a lesbian.
Doubt it.
And so you were close to your father, you say, growing up,
Yeah.
right? And what was your father relationship like?
Now, I wouldn't say close, if that makes sense. I think I more had a worshiping thing because I really felt this desire to be like him. I wanted to be more male. I wanted to be this my dad was a professional athlete. So I wanted to be this way. Athletics was what kept me going. I was a high-ranking athlete as a female. And so I really excelled in athletics. And that was really a part of my childhood and growing up. We were all very athletic. And so I think it was more that I worshiped my dad, not so much that I had a great relationship with my dad. I did not necessarily have a great relationship. It
And
was
why
more
not?
that I think there was the schism there because I was a girl and I was very masculine. And I think my dad, on some level, could smell the homosexuality from me. And I think it was making him uncomfortable. And so it was a very, I wouldn't say tumultuous, but it was sort of like sometimes it was okay. If I was doing great in sports, I got accolades. But if I wasn't doing good in sports, I wouldn't. And there was a lot of mixed messages there, I think.
Did you ever conversate with him about the missed messages and the way you felt around him,
Oh,
even though you
sure.
wanted to be around him? Did you ever tell him that, you know what? I don't feel close to you. I want to be close to you, but I feel like you don't like me, but you do like me, but you don't like. Did you have a conversation with him ever about that?
As a young person or now?
Well, before you, yeah, when you were
No,
young,
I
growing
did
up with
not.
him.
I could never have done that. I
Wh-
had
wh-
no skills to do that. I was not the person you see today. I didn't even know that I was feeling that way until later on in life. But I think, mostly it was just about getting the sort of strokes, if that makes sense, the accolades from my dad and him being happy that I was winning all the races. That made me feel close to my dad.
Oh, I see. And so, have you forgiven your mother for those little things that she would
Of
irritate
course.
you with?
Of course. I have such a beautiful there is no it residue. There is no residue from my childhood. And I'll tell you why. Because I take responsibility for me. And however those situations dealt and came onto me and how I dealt with them, I don't blame my parents in any way, shape, or form at all. And so what I needed to do for myself was figure out why I was feeling this way.
So, have you forgiven her for those little things you t- that she would do to you while growing up?
Yep, sure
And did
did.
you tell her that?
Yep, I sure did.
So you went to your mother and said what?
I said, "Mom, I need to let you know that I want to tell you that you are a great mom and everything you did for me was amazing. And whatever happened to us as child and mother, I would like for us to move forward from that. And I don't blame you for anything,
So you
nothing."
didn't forgive her for screwing you up.
She didn't screw me up. Nope, she did not screw me up. Nobody screwed me up.
Did you forgive your father for having that little distance between the two of you when you
Of
really wanted to
course.
be close?
Yeah, of course I
You
did.
told
Let me
what
say something.
you
As a
told him
parent,
that?
yeah, my parents know I forgive. I told my parents one day, I said, "I do not blame you for anything. Anything you see here or what you think, it is not you.
So
It is
when you
all
went to
me."
your father to forgive him, what did you say to
Yes.
him?
I said, "Dad, this none of this is you. It's not your fault that I'm this way. None of it. None of it. You were young parents, first off, struggling how to raise a family of 3 kids. I can't even imagine. I have one. So, I really am a person who takes responsibility for my own actions. And I'm not going to say that things don't happen when you're growing up, but I really believe as an adult, you have to start to work on those things. And I worked a lot on my mental health and who I am. And I don't blame anybody at all for where I'm at today.
Do you believe that you become like what you hate?
I love men. What are you talking about?
No, I asked you, do you believe that you become like what you hate?
Do I become like what you hate? No, I don't believe that
Why not?
because I don't feel that way. So I can only answer that question for myself.
If you were not angry at your father trying to get his love and his attention,
Mhm. Mhm.
do you think you would have gotten that feeling of wanting to be like a man had you
No.
not been angry at your father?
No, I do not believe that. It took me years to come to terms with why I feel this way. And it's called gender dysphoria. It's an actual real mental disorder that a
I,
lot of people get. A lot of people who come from families that never happened have gender dysphoria is a very small disorder. It's not what you see today. All of the people who are trans are not like me. It's a whole other it's why it's dangerous because this is very very rare what you see. It's not something that hundreds of thousands of people have. It's not. It's always been rare and it always will be rare.
how did your mother feel about your father while you were growing up?
Oh, my parents, again, being married 67 years, they had a close relationship. I mean, I grew up in a really basic family. I don't think there was anything abnormal in my family, to be honest with you. So,
So, how
I grew
did
up
your
here.
mother feel about your father?
I've never really asked.
You can tell, you can sense how she felt about him.
Loves my father.
When you were growing up, while growing up, how did she feel
Loves,
about him?
loves my father. All I ever heard was good things about my father from my
And
mother.
so, how did your father feel about her?
Loves my mother. All I
So,
ever
when
heard
they
was
were
good
fighting
things.
one another at times, that was love.
Yeah, fighting is love.
So,
I don't think it's not.
when your mother and father were fighting, you call that love?
Of course, depends on the kind of fighting you're talking about. Arguments. I'm talking about arguments.
I am
Arguments
too.
are love. That happens in every. If your marriage isn't having arguments, I kind of feel like something's not right there. We're human beings before we're partners
And so, how can argument be love?
because you're disagreeing,
But how is that love?
because you're being honest.
How is that love?
Love is honesty.
Amazing. And so, you can't be honest unless you're arguing.
No, you picked out a specific thing. Love is a lot of things in a relationship. It's not one thing. It's not dominance and submission. It's equal. And love is respecting another person enough to say, I don't like what you're doing right now, and I would like to have a conversation about that.
So
That's love to me.
as a kid, when you would see your mother and father arguing, you would think to yourself as a kid, oh, they love one another.
As a kid, you don't know that. No.
What
As
would
an
you think?
adult, I do.
What would you think about them arguing at the time when you were young?
I mean, of course, sometimes it would make you uncomfortable for sure.
In
There's no
what
doubt
way?
about it. Well, like, because you don't understand what they're arguing about. At 10 years old, you don't understand what they're arguing about. You think my son at 11 understands what we're arguing about? No, but we
And when
don't do it in front of him.
and when your father would go off to work and your mother would talk to you about your father and the arguments and stuff like that,
She
what
didn't
would
do
she
that.
say? And
She didn't do
explaining
that.
it to you, what would she say?
She didn't do that. She
She
never
never
talked to us
explained to
about
you
that.
why they were arguing?
Nope.
Why not?
Nope. Why? I'm 10. Why would she tell me that? It's not my business.
But you at some point you're 12, 13, 14, 15, 18. Why did she tell you that?
Well, I can't think of an I can't think of an instance that she did that, to be honest with you. I don't think she ever did do that, to be honest.
And
I
why
don't think
not?
so. I don't know. I never asked, but I'll ask her.
Amazing.